Joining us now is a graduate of Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School and a U.S. Congressman representing Florida, Jared Moskowitz. Thank you so much for being with us. Can you even put into words what it was like to be back in such a familiar place on such an emotional mission?
No, I can't. And thanks, Chris, for having me and talking about this. But no, I can't put it into words. That was the whole idea of going there and bringing a bipartisan delegation to go do this, because we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. We can look at video like you just showed that, shows the building 1,000 feet away. But to go through it with the family members, to walk through shot by shot, victim by victim, the building is a time capsule. It's exactly as it was the day of the shooting. Every piece of homework that a student was working on, every essay, every textbook, every shoe that fell off, every backpack. You saw where 15 kids tried to hide behind a desk and the one or two that were sticking out died. And so it's horrific. And I think that's why it's so important for members to come. And I think we're going to try to do this again if we can, to get more members to come on a bipartisan basis to see what happens when a school is turned into a war zone.
What do you think it can help them to understand? What do you maybe know now that you didn't know before you saw the inside of that building?
Well, I'm hoping what they understand is that the status quo is not acceptable. So sure, there's going to be areas we disagree. But if we can agree that the status quo is not acceptable and doing nothing is not acceptable, then we can try to figure out where we can work together. We got to figure out how we can trust each other. When I was in the state legislature, the way we got the Marjory Stoneman Douglas School Safety Act passed on a bipartisan basis, working with Republicans who were in charge at the time, raising the age to buy a gun to 21, 3-day waiting periods, red flag laws, was we had to put politics aside, realize that the perfect can't be the enemy of the good, and that both sides were going to get some stuff and both sides weren't going to get some stuff. And if we can do that in Congress, we can make more progress. There's not one thing we can do that's going to fix this. It's constant mitigating of the situation. One thing that I learned going through the building that was just so stark is that the building had hurricane glass because of the building code here in Florida. All the windows were hurricane glass. When the shooter tried to kill students as they were fleeing out of the building, the bullets wouldn't go through the hurricane glass. That hurricane glass saved students' lives. But the shooter never went into a classroom. He just shot through the little glass window every single door had, which wasn't hurricane glass. And that's how we killed all those students in the classroom if they weren't in the hallway. And so to see the difference in what hurricane glass did 15 feet away versus the glass window, it's just shocking, because a lot of those kids would still be alive if that very same glass that was on the window was on the door.
Of course, that brings us back to an ongoing debate, right? Is it about doing things like putting hurricane glass in interior doors or getting guns out of the hands of people who maybe shouldn't have them? And I wonder what your conversations were like, because I know you had a round table with families who, in this case and so many others, I'm astonished by their strength. So many people who have lost loved ones, who have lived through these kinds of circumstances, have not given up hope for change. But do they have hope for change? Do you see a realistic path in Congress to do what was able to be done in Florida?
Well, first of all, these family members have crisscrossed the country the last 5 years, lobbying elected officials like myself and colleagues for the obvious. And so, no, their strength is unbelievable. It encourages me. The students that made it out of that building, that took this up as a cause, not just for their community, but other communities that suffer with this around the country, gives me strength. But no, look, we still believe that there are things to be done and that we can do it. We have made progress, not just here in the state of Florida, but with passing the first gun violence prevention legislation last year in the last Congress. That was the first bill in 30 years that Congress has done to address gun violence legislation. And when asked, what can we do? The answer is all of the above. It's mental health, it's school safety, it's law enforcement, it's gun violence prevention, it's all of it, right? Just doing one thing isn't going to solve the problem. But we have to mitigate the situation. We have to realize that we're not going to stop everything. But if we pass a couple of pieces of legislation, there might be 15 kids that are alive, and a couple of more, there might be 50 kids that are alive, and a couple of more, there might be some teachers that are saved, and a couple of more, we might save people that are fleeing a church when someone tries to bring a shooting to a house of worship. And so, you know, we got to break those walls down between the two parties on where they disagree and start making progress, because the idea that we can't live up to a basic fact that when we look parents or family members of folks who work in these schools, that when they drop their kids off or they go to work that day, they don't get to come home. I mean, that is an indictment on every single elected official that can't look these parents in the eye and say that you get to pick your kid up from school.
Congressman Jared Moskowitz, thank you so much. We very much appreciate you being on this program, and we'll be right back.